Ashton Jeanty is the clear 101 in rookie drafts, but how much do you need to trade away from him? We'll discuss that and more next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Cowboys podcast, covering your team every single day. We do have some news for you regarding our co-host. We'll have a new co-host starting next Monday. That's the plan, at least. Not going to announce the name yet. You'll have to tune in for on Monday to see who that is. But on today's show, we're going to be answering your Twitter questions. I reached out today. You guys gave me some really good questions, including how high should you draft Travis Hunter in an IDP league? Is now the time to stash Miles Sanders before training camp? But let's start with this question from Benjamin Robinson, who does a lot of great work with the Grinding the Mocks app. He wants to know, what kind of hauls should I expect to get if I'm trading the 101? So again, in a 101 rookie drafts, even in Superflex, it's Ashton Jeanty. So really the question is, what do you need to acquire if you're moving away from Ashton Jeanty? He said, I inherited a bad team and initially thought having the 101 would be simple. Just take Ashton Jeanty. But now I'm having other thoughts the more I look at my roster, that I'd be wasting Jeanty's prime on a team that needs a big overhaul. First of all, kudos to this dynasty manager. It takes a lot of guts to know that even adding someone like Ashton Jeanty isn't going to fix your team. You likely got the 101 for a reason, unless you acquired it via trade. Your team's not very good. And as great as we think Ashton Jeanty may be, you're right. Probably by the time we get to Ashton Jeanty's team or Ashton Jeanty's prime, your team might not be ready. So what's the quickest way to restart a rebuild? It's by trading the 101 and getting a bunch of assets. So before we look at some current trades that have happened on Dynasty League football, one of the things I'm looking to do is break Jeanty down to 2 or 3 big-time assets, probably one in this year's draft, and then one down the line that can help me do the rebuild. Now, I don't think I would trade him straight up for, hey, like let's say 105, a 2026 first rounder, and a 2027 first rounder. I understand the appeal to that, but there's also a chance that you just get a bunch of mid-first round picks and you never get elite talent. So I would like to turn him into a big-time player and another asset. Right now on Dynasty League football, Ashton Jeanty is the number 8 overall player in startup drafts. So if you're comparing him to other players, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb and Brian Thomas Jr. and Brock Bowers, players of that caliber. I'm not saying that you should trade those guys one for one, but that's the type of asset we're dealing with here. So let's take a look at some recent trades from Dynasty League football. And I'll read, if you're not watching with us on YouTube, I'll read them through. Ashton Jeanty for Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's not a trade that I would do if I'm rebuilding. I understand how good Amon-Ra St. Brown is. I think he's actually being drafted ahead of Jeanty in startup drafts. I would want more. That's not enough for me. And actually, we've seen that trade a couple times. Here's another one. Ashton Jeanty and Jalen Waddle, for Jackson Smith-Njigba, so that's a top 12, top 13 dynasty receiver, for 104 and 204. So at 104, likely this is a non-superflex league. So you're talking Omarion Hampton's gone, Travis Hunter, probably Tetairoa McMillan. So you're likely trading Jackson Smith-Njigba for Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, in a pick 204. That's not enough for me as well. Let's do a Superflex League. Ashton Jeanty for Bo Nix, Devon Vele, a 2026 second round pick, and a 2026 third round pick. Again, I understand the appeal here, getting a young quarterback in these super flex leagues. I'm sure you're aware of this. It is impossible to trade for quarterbacks, but that's just, again, not enough for me. As much as I like Bo Nix, we're not ranking him as a top 8 dynasty quarterback right now. In fact, over on Dynasty League Football, he's being drafted outside of the top 10. Not enough for me. Let's go to another one. Ashton Jeanty and Tony Pollard for Malik Neighbors in a 2026 round 2 pick. This is a trade I would consider. We did a show earlier in the week where Malik Neighbors over on Pro Football Focus is wide receiver 2 right now in Dynasty Leagues. That's a little bit too high for me, but I like the idea of trading Jeanty for Neighbors because if I'm rebuilding, I want to load up on receivers. Wide receivers just have a much longer prime. And I think Malik Neighbors is an unreal talent. Now, I think that's basically a 1-for-1 Tony Pollard for a 2026 second round pick. I probably would rather have Pollard. But if you're contending, you don't need Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's a good RB2. You would rather have the draft pick. So that is the type of move that I would make. I like that one a lot. Let's go to another one. Ashton Jeanty for Tyrone Tracy, pick 212, a 2026 first-round pick, and another 2026 first-round pick. So 2 first-round picks and $45 blind dollars. 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick this year in Tyrone Tracy. It's tough. I like this trade, but I don't like Tracy enough, and I don't think Tyrone Tracy is the type of player you want to acquire if you're trying to rebuild because he's already an older running back. I think he's 26 this year. They just drafted Cam Scatterbo. I don't think he's going to be someone that's going to help you start your rebuild. So while the 2 first-round picks are intriguing as well as that pick 212, that's another one that I would pass on. Let's run through one more, and this is a super flex league. I don't like that trade either. I was going to say, here's one. Justin Fields, Matthew Stafford, Najee Harris, Jack Besh for Ashton Jeanty. No, thanks. All right, here we go. This is a fascinating one for me. Ashton Jeanty in the 201 for Drake London, Chris Olave in the 208. So Drake London and Ashton Jeanty, I would prefer Jeanty, but it's close. Chris Olave, whose value has been suppressed because of the concussion history, still incredibly young, and pick 208. I think I would do that trade because of the 2 receivers if I didn't have to give up pick 201. I think adding in 201 is just a little bit too rich, but I don't mind that strategy of, hey, let's get 2 receivers who came out of the 2022 draft. Both of these guys were incredibly productive early in their careers, and they're both very young. I think that's the type of trade that I would want to get. A similar asset in Drake London, another receiver that can be a wide receiver too, and a second-round pick, but giving up pick 201, a little bit of a stretch. One of the things that we've seen in all of these trades is that you can get, the types of trades that you can get done with 101 are pretty incredible. I'll give you one more. Ashton Jeanty and Rome Odunze for Josh Allen in a Superflex league. That's not a trade that I would recommend for a rebuilding team because Josh Allen, while he's not close to the end, you're also getting a 29, 30-year-old quarterback, and you're trading away a young receiver. But it just shows you how valuable that pick is. Do not sell the 101 unless you feel like you're getting multiple assets that can be cornerstones for your franchise for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that's why trading for Malik Neighbors, trading for a Drake London, targeting a Brian Thomas Jr., that's what I would try to accomplish if I needed to move the 101 because my team just isn't ready. All right, let's get to some more Twitter questions, including, is now the time to stash Miles Sanders before training camp? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. We'll see what happens in that Knicks-Pacers series, but I'm taking the Thunder regardless. I thought they were the best team all regular season long. They've been outstanding in the postseason at home. I think they're going to win the NBA championship. So go check out the futures lines, who you think is going to win the championship, who's going to win the MVP. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are answering your Dynasty Twitter questions. And this next question comes from @AmericasBombers. He wants to know, would it be wise to try and buy Miles Sanders, the Cowboys running back, low right now before training camp starts? And the reason why this question is being asked is, number one, the Cowboys backfield is incredibly uncertain right now. You have Javonte Williams, who signed a 1-year, $3 million max deal this offseason. You have Miles Sanders, who we just mentioned, signed essentially a veteran minimum contract. The Cowboys drafted Jaydon Blue, the running back from Texas, in round 5, and then they selected Phil Maffa, a running back from Clemson, in round 7, to go along with Deuce Vaughn, a late day 3 pick from the 2023 draft. That's it. That's the backfield right now. But on paper, we look at this Cowboys offense and we think it should be pretty good. Dak Prescott's healthy. Whenever Dak Prescott has been healthy for a full season, this Cowboys offense has finished either number 1 or number 2 in points per game. They have one of the best receivers in CeeDee Lamb in the league. They added George Pickens. They've made some big-time investments in their offensive line with Tyler Booker. It sounds like Tyler Guyton, their left tackle, has taken some major steps. So this is a very fantasy-friendly offense. And Brian Schottenheimer all offseason has preached that he wants to emphasize the run this year. We'll see how much the Cowboys actually run the ball. But if you look at Brian Schottenheimer's past, whenever he's been an offensive coordinator, his teams have run the ball pretty effectively, even going back to his days in Seattle. So we'll see how many touches this Cowboy running back gets, but it's a fair question to wonder which of these running backs should you value. Let's do a process of elimination, because I think that's the best way to look at this. I don't think Javonte Williams is the answer. I think the Cowboys brought in Javonte Williams to be a stopgap because he's a good pass blocker and he's an adequate receiver. And when you have 2 rookies on your team in Jaydon Blue and Phil Maffa, I don't think they wanted to put those guys in a position where they have to do a lot of pass blocking. And Deuce Vaughn at 5'5", not a pass blocker. So Javonte Williams has his flaws. He's not a dynamic running back anymore, coming off the torn ACL a couple years ago, but he can pass block. He doesn't fumble the football, and he can do a little bit in the receiving game. Having said that, I don't think Jaydon Blue is going to play a lot on early downs. I think the Cowboys drafted him to be a pass catcher. So I think he's going to be on the field quite a bit. Phil Maffa, a 7th-round pick, I think he's likely a practice squad player in 2025. We'll see in 2026. And that leaves Miles Sanders, who was awful in Carolina, like downright awful in Carolina. But we did see him have a Pro Bowl season in Philadelphia. But that's Philadelphia. Everybody plays well behind that Eagles offensive line. But I think of all the running backs on the roster, I think he's probably the best suited to be an early down player on this Cowboys offense and give them a little bit of juice. This is not Saquon Barkley or prime Tony Pollard or anything like that. But when you're comparing him to Phil Maffa, Deuce Vaughn, and Javonte Williams, he might look like Saquon Barkley. And I think that the explosiveness is already starting to show out during some of these OTA practices. And we got a couple of reports out of Thursday that he looked like the best running back in the field. He made a couple of big plays. But after saying all that, I don't think you should be buying him right now. I mean, if you can pick him off your waivers or whatever, that's fine. But I wouldn't be trading an asset for him because Brian Schottenheimer firmly believes in a running back by committee approach. And I do think Javonte Williams is going to have a role. I do think Jaydon Blue is going to have a role. We'll see about Miles Sanders. But we even got word from Brian Broaddus, a former scout of the Cowboys who does some great work at 105.3 The Fan out in Dallas, that he doesn't believe the Cowboys are satisfied with their running back room yet and that they're going to be open to exploring trades. Maybe not right now, but as we get into August and as we get a little bit closer to the season. Now, does that mean that they're going to go out and trade for someone like Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker? Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them add a name like Roshan Johnson, or pick a name, pick whatever name you want that it's not overly appealing, Ramondre Stevenson or whatever. Like, I do think they're going to be active trying to find a better, more dynamic running back for a late day 3 pick. And this could be a backfield that's just frustrating for us all year long. I think eventually they'll find a runner or two that they'll stick with. But early in the season, I think this is going to be a mess. So I would try to avoid this running back situation if at all possible. One more quick question on the Cowboys running back. This one comes from Jack. He wants to know, is Jaydon Blue the most valuable running back in the Cowboys backfield right now? My answer would be yes. Like, he's just the guy that I think will be on the team for the next couple of years. He's the only one that I feel confident saying that about. And even then, he's a 5th round pick, and a late 5th round pick. So, it's a dicey situation, but the Cowboys really like his speed. They think he can be an asset as a receiver, and his big play potential and ability is why he's going to be on this roster. So I don't love Jaydon Blue. I was hoping the Cowboys would maybe go with more of a full-time running back like a DJ Giddens, who I think went 1 pick after them. But if I'm rostering any of these running backs right now, Jaydon Blue is probably the one I want. I think the best value is actually Phil Maffa, who, if you watched him at Clemson, this is a downhill physical running back. He's not all that dissimilar from Audric Estime, who went in the 5th round last year, but he's got more speed than what Estime has. Moffitt didn't run a 40, but the expected time was in that 4.56, 4.58 range. He reminds me a lot of LeGarrette Blount coming out of Oregon. I think it might take Moffitt some time to get used to the speed of the NFL, but I wouldn't be surprised a year from now if he's the Rico Dowdle of this Cowboys offense. Remember, Rico Dowdle, undrafted free agent. The Cowboys clearly aren't afraid to play low value or low drafted running backs. So Phil Moffitt is probably the guy that I'm stashing at the bottom of my rosters right now. But if you're asking me to pick between all of these running backs, Jaydon Blue is the one that I want on my Dynasty roster. All right, let's answer one more question, including, should Travis Hunter be the 101 in IDP leagues? We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, last question here from Matt. He wants to know, if you're playing in a Dynasty Superflex IDP league, which, by the way, everybody should be playing in IDP leagues. They're so much fun. I've been playing in one for 12 years now. Easily the most fun league I play in. So go play in them if you haven't had a chance to do so. He wants to know, is Travis Hunter the number 1 pick over Ashton Jeanty, as he should be able to slot into your DB role? In all of my leagues that I play in, and most of them are actually on ESPN, which I know is not the best site for Dynasty, but I do like to use their site. All of these sites are classifying Travis Hunter as a wide receiver / cornerback, and that is incredibly valuable. When you can have a player that you can slot into your cornerback room or cornerback slot, who's likely going to average, let's be conservative, 60 receiving yards a game, 5 catches, right? You're talking about, a pretty modest number. and you have the potential to get some IDP points, whether it's tackles, maybe an interception here or there. Yeah, I do, because I think, at least in my leagues, having the top ranked corners, just put this out there, the top ranked corners are averaging 9 to 10 points per game. Travis Hunter is going to not have to hardly do anything to average 9 or 10 points per game. And there's a chance that he's averaging 15, 16, 17 points per game if he becomes the receiver that we all think he's going to be. The gap between what Travis Hunter can do at cornerback compared to what Ashton Jeanty can do at running back, it's going to be astronomical. He's going to give you such an advantage at that spot that I don't know how you can justify taking anybody but Travis Hunter at the 101. So I am 100% in the camp that you draft Travis Hunter at 101, you put him in your cornerback spot, and you are getting a huge weekly advantage, likely 7 to 8, maybe even 10 points per game more than the top ranked players at that position. Plus, if you've never played in an IDP league before, corners have a tendency to be very streaky. They're just not overly reliable week to week, unless you get these corners that just rack up a bunch of tackles. And those guys are consistent, but they're not necessarily consistent year over year. Adding a receiver, one of the more consistent positions that we have at that spot, locking in, let's say, those 14, 15 PPR points every single week, it makes this an easy choice for me. I'm not even sure it's much of a debate. Did want to show some projections here for Travis Hunter, just to show you how big of an advantage he can give you in IDP league. So right now, Mike Clay does all the projections over at ESPN. He has Travis Hunter projected at 73 receptions for 884 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, those numbers I think are very modest. It's basically what Marvin Harrison Jr. did last year, minus 3 touchdowns, right? 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very attainable, okay? Right now, among receivers, that would have him projected, I think, at like wide receiver 15 or so, if you're watching with us on YouTube. Go over to defensive backs and look at how that projection compares to other defensive backs in general. Brian Branch is the highest projected defensive player right now in IDP leagues at 158 fantasy points. And again, this is PPR leagues. This is 1 point per tackle, 1 point per assisted tackle. Okay. You get a lot of points for tackles here. And yet Travis Hunter is projected to outscore him by 70 points this year. 70. You're looking at a week to week projection. Brian Branch averaging about 9 points per game. Travis Hunter, 14.6. 14.6. There's no other position where you get that big of a discrepancy at that spot at 5 points per game. And again, that is some very modest numbers for Travis Hunter. What if he has a Ladd McConkey season where he's 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns? What if he's better than Brian Thomas Jr. and it's 1,200 yards? Or maybe more likely, what if he's a 1,000-yard receiver, but he gets 45 tackles on defense and 2 interceptions? There is just no way that I could justify taking anybody else at 101 in my IDP leagues other than Travis Hunter, because he gives you such a big positional value. On top of that, he's going to be really fun to roster and root for, and the other league mates in your dynasty leagues are going to get so sick and tired of having to face you when you have this cheat code at defensive back, at your cornerback slot. So yes, to answer the question, Travis Hunter should be the 101 in your super flex leagues, or sorry, in your IDP leagues. Go out, target him, and have a lot of fun. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Next week, we're going to continue to dive into some of the recent ADP. I believe we're going to get new ADP from Dynasty League Football. We're going to take a look at one fantasy expert's, his rankings compared to the ADP. We'll see how it differs, how it compares. So make sure you tune in for that. Follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday with more shows and more content.